So after the launch of Conan's latest update, the Age of Heroes Chapter 1 on the public beta client the other day, the Funcom developers actually put out a second follow-up Q&A to the first one. The first one came last week. If you haven't already seen it, there is a video linked in the top right now. They went through a lot of information. Some of the past Q&As have been a little lackluster in terms of both information and actual amount of answers, but that one was a night and day difference. This Q&A does have a bit less information simply because it is a follow-up based on the questions asked after the last Q&A, but nevertheless there is probably some very interesting information here, so we're going to go through it. Question 1. Does the 50-metre range for workers around their station also account for vertical buildings with multiple floors? The range does go vertically as well, and accounts for as many floors within that range with a valid path between them. From my understanding, the 50 metres is basically a sphere, and by valid path I assume it means if you have, say, a bridge above the thrall, that might be within the 50 metre radius, but if the staircase to actually reach that bridge is out of the 50 metre radius, then they won't be able to pathfind up there. Question 2. Is there any way to set boundaries to prevent workers from wandering around? Can you entrap them in small spaces? Ensuring their needs are met in a closed environment or limiting their pathing, i.e. walls without doors, would generally restrain thralls. There may be some cases where they might wander off or even teleport through a wall, but those should be exceptions, which we can reduce further through your reports on the public beta test or post-release. I did actually wonder about the teleport failsafe. You do see it sometimes with the tavern system where an NPC will not be able to reach their chair and will eventually seem to just failsafe teleport and go there anyway. I haven't seen it myself yet with the living settlement system, but by the sounds of that answer it sounds like it's unintentional for that to happen. Regardless, if you are eventually able to just pen your thralls up in a small room and leave them in there and not have to worry about them, well, I think we'd all like that option. Question 3. Would placing thralls in cages or other restraints work to prevent them from seeking their needs? Whilst most cages will currently be unable to restrain them, this is something we might change in the future. I've seen this question a lot, especially about the Numidian pillory and the hanging cage. A lot of people have wondered if they put a worker thrall in there, will they move around or will they stay in the cage? Seems that is not the case currently. It would be very nice if the devs could change that, because it would be a really good way to keep, for example, a tier 4 thrall anchored in one spot and available for all the nearby benches. Question 4. Are there any consequences of not allowing thralls to go about their needs? Currently there are no gameplay benefits or consequences associated with thrall needs. This is something we have built into the system for potential use later, but for now we didn't want to punish players with a new responsibility that doesn't provide meaningful rewards. To me, this sounds like maybe a little bit of testing the waters for how people might feel about a potential reward for feeding thralls. Me personally, I don't want any drawback, I'd rather it just be an optional benefit. For example, maybe a fully fed crafter thrall would craft things 10% faster. I think that would probably be a good trade-off, but I don't want to see thralls crafting slower or using more resources just because they haven't eaten. Question 5. What's the difference between placing a crafter at an arbitrary point in the world and explicitly placing it as assigned to a workstation? With living settlements, you won't assign a worker to a workstation anymore. You'll be able to select the worker who provides better benefits when accessing the station instead. As for animation, workers will use whatever workstation is available and appropriate to their profession randomly. Basically, thralls just aren't bound to one workstation anymore, they will just use the closest one to them when they feel like it. I do wish there was somewhat of a preferential system to allow thralls to return to the same bench, but it's a minor complaint, I think. Question 6. Is there a limit to how many workstations can benefit from each worker's bonus? There is no limit to the number of workstations that can receive a worker's bonus. Question 7. Do the number of placed chairs, campfires and beds need to be equal to the number of workers at the base? Thralls will share everything, including beds. If there are not enough things to do available, thralls will just do nothing. If they end up using your bed, it won't take your spawn point away either. Question 8. Are jailers in the Exile lands going to have Silent Legion armour drop when you find them? No, the jailers will wear armour that is more appropriate to where you find them. Question number 9. Are we still able to use the Wheel of Pain to break NPCs? Yes, the Wheel of Pain still works as it did. Question 10. Will pets use the needs system? Pets do not currently use the system, just crafter thralls. The system is theoretically set up to work with pets, so it is possible in the future, or with mods. Just my 2 cents, I don't really care for pets using the needs system. It would be kinda cool to have your pet go and eat food or drink water somewhere, but it's quite low on my list of priorities. Final question, number 11. Will Funcom update the journey steps to include specific steps about living settlements? Right now, there is no gameplay involved to make journey steps 4, as the system is currently just cosmetic. If or when we make use of the system to provide rewards or repercussions for the health and happiness of your settlement, we will most likely update journey steps at that time. So that closes up the Q&A and answers a lot of the questions that were asked in this thread and elsewhere that weren't initially addressed in the first Q&A. I think the big takeaway from this is that in the future, the living settlement system could offer rewards or repercussions to the health or happiness of your settlement. Personally, I'm a little bit mixed on that. As I mentioned earlier, if, for example, it's only a positive, so say your thralls are fully fed, they craft 10% faster, I think that would be a benefit that is actually worth putting time into. But to be honest, I'm not really interested in a sort of Fallout 4 settlement happiness kind of system, nor do I think there should be any repercussions. I think it should only be optional positives, similar to eating food in Valheim or Enshrouded, for example. The Associate Game Director Dennis has also been active on the forums recently. He did say they want to add options to exclude items from being used by followers later on. I presume it just wasn't able to make it for this update, but that would be a very valuable thing to have. I know a lot of people are concerned about thralls getting into areas of the base they don't want them in, and for now it seems the solution to do that is put all of the needs that the thralls will want to interact with closer to them and further away from your bedroom or your treasure room, for example. Seeing as we're on the topic, I do have something of a suggestion that I haven't seen anybody else bring up yet. I would really like an option to call all of your thralls to one place, all of your worker thralls anyway, like a bell, a gong or something similar. I think this would be incredibly useful for if you need to make sure everyone's geared, they have aloe pots, etc. When I was trying to gear up all my workers in my Argosian test base, it was a bit difficult as I had to, kind of just run around and try and search for everyone. A utility to call all of your worker thralls, or just generally any thralls that aren't on guard, to one specific area I think would be very good. Also, I really have to say the new community manager Carol has been doing a great job on communication so far. A lot of people have been praising her interaction with the community on the forums, and rightly so. Hopefully this level of communication is the new standard because she's doing a stellar job. We all criticise Funcom's communication, or lack thereof, at times. Sometimes they are incredibly quiet, but I think when they're doing a good job it does need to be praised. Anyway, that about wraps us up for today. Quite a few more answers about the Age of Heroes Chapter 1. Of course, I'll be covering all the Age of Heroes news as well. I put out my initial impressions video on Wednesday, and I will have a real deep dive on the living settlement system coming soon, alongside guides for how to obtain Freya and Lu Fei and get all of their perks, how best to build to make your thralls behave with the living settlement system, and plenty more. Make sure you subscribe for all the best Conan Exiles Age of Heroes coverage, and if you want videos early, check out the Patreon in the pinned comment or description. You can join as a free member to get previews, or you can join the $10 tier or above to get full videos early as soon as they're ready, way before YouTube gets them. On that note, thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful, esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. I think I'll be working on the deep dive for the living settlement system next. My initial impressions in the previous video were quite positive, so I'm hoping I have the same outlook when it's done. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.